For those of us who belong to the teaching profession, speaking is not a difficult task, but to be brief and beautiful is an arduous one. Sambat has fixed the time limit of 10 minutes. I shall try to be as brief as possible. The Hollywood actress Elizabeth Taylor told her husband soon after her 9th marriage, "This too shall be brief." I got the idea to speak about the role of the overseas Chinese and the overseas Indians in the economic transformation of China and India from the two brief presentations that were made by Chancellor Viswanathan on the first and the second days of the seminar. Viswanathan may not remember, I was his contemporary in New Delhi, the Indian School of International Studies, in the late 1960s, when I was pursuing my doctoral research in Southeast Asian studies. As Viswanathan pointed out, the overseas Chinese have contributed nearly 70% of the foreign direct investment of direct investment, which led to the economic transformation of China. We do not have exact figures about the Indian diaspora who has contributed to the economic transformation, but according to well-known economists who are working on this, it's only about 5%. One important point should be highlighted at the beginning itself. Since 1949, when the revolution in China took place, China has undergone political and economic upheavals at regular intervals. The Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, the Tiananmen Square incident, all have cost millions of lives. As Professor Amartya Sen has pointed out, in India, the rate of growth had been what we call the Hindu rate of growth, but it has been done under a democratic setup, and the progress had been not sufficient as we would like it. But in the world of shrinking geographical boundaries and widening intellectual horizons, China, I submit, will continue to undergo a lot of political and economic convulsions. I want to make one point at the beginning itself. In the inaugural session, we had S. Krishnan speaking about how we are trying to attract direct investment from the Tamil overseas in Tamil Nadu. Second day, number of bureaucrats spoke. Mainly among them, I should mention the brilliant presentation which was made by Pooja Kulkarni. All of them highlighted the positive aspects, the connectivity within and outside the world, no power shortage, no labor unrest, excellent legal and banking system, very good infrastructure, etc. However, I was disappointed about one thing. None of them spoke about how many proposals that we have received, how many have been sanctioned, how much of the Indian diaspora are trying to invest in Tamil Nadu, how much the Tamil diaspora is trying to invest in Tamil Nadu. Dr. Sambat, I would like to submit that when we have the next conference, we must tell the bureaucrats not only to speak about the positive aspects of the Tamil Nadu, but also to what extent we have been able to succeed in attracting capital from the diaspora, in which sector, and what are the hurdles that they face, etc. It was Viswanathan again who pointed out what is the major stumbling block in our attracting foreign capital. He candidly mentioned about the widespread corruption that is there in Tamil Nadu, and unless we remove corruption from our body politic, both at the social and political level, it will be extremely difficult for us to get the needed foreign direct investment. I will mention two things about this. Singapore, when it developed, had a lot of capital to invest, and it wanted to have multiple options. One of the countries in which they were interested, one of the states in India in which they were interested was Tamil Nadu. Then Chief Minister Jayalalitha, as S.R. Nathan, my good friend who had 2 terms as president of Singapore, wanted millions of dollars to be invested in a Hong Kong bank. They lost interest in Tamil Nadu and they turned to Andhra Pradesh to Chandrababu Naidu, who was giving them all facilities. Unless we read, then we have the government change, but the system has not changed. Ananda Krishnan, the richest Malaysian, who is a Sri Lankan Tamil origin, wanted to invest in the Sun TV. You know what happened? Subramaniam Swamy raised a hue and cry, and some of political leaders have been detained. And the case is not yet over. So unless we get rid of the corruption in the political system and wider society as possible, I submit that we will not be able to make much progress in this direction. Faced as we were with foreign exchange crisis some years ago, the State Bank of India started a new system. They told the non-resident Indians who can open savings bank accounts in US dollars, earn interest in US dollars, and withdraw also in US dollars. And when we faced the worst economic crisis in the 1990s, and when we had to airlift gold from the Venkateswara temple in Tirupati as a bond for the loan that the international financial institutions were giving, there was a mad scramble to withdraw the money in the savings bank account by non-resident Indians. I was present in a meeting which was addressed by I.G. Patel, the former governor of the Reserve Bank of India and the economic advisor to successive government in India International Center in New Delhi. Delivered in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Memorial Lecture, I.G. Patel said, the non-resident Indians may have their heart in India, but they would prefer to keep their money in Swiss banks. Compared to the overseas Chinese, the overseas Indians are very poor. Take Malaysia, for example. The Indians constitute 9% of the population, but they only 1.4% of the national wealth. Whereas the Chinese control the economy of all the Southeast Asians. Not merely that, they're politically aggressive, culturally exclusive, and immensely proud of their language and culture, and also their motherland. We do not devote much attention, but I would love to point out that the rubber plantation with the Indian laborer work, they are all disintegrated today and have given place to multi-story building and golf courses. The workers have migrated to the urban areas and they live as urban squatters. And what is more tragic, many of them have been criminalized and lumpenized. While dealing with the economic transformation of China and the role that the overseas Chinese have played, 2 personalities must be mentioned. One is the Singapore statesman Lee Kuan Yew, the other is the Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. Both Lee Kuan Yew and Deng Xiaoping belong to the Hakka group. Hakka is the linguistic group for Southern. Lee Kuan Yew once said, Deng Xiaoping is only 5 feet tall, but he is 100 times taller than most of the statesmen in the world. In the first official visit that Lee Kuan Yew made to China as the Prime Minister of Singapore, he told them, we overseas Chinese came from the poorer parts of China because of starvation, but sheer dint of hard work and determination, we control not only the economy of this country. We are only 4% of the total population of China, but we own 4% of the national wealth. And he also pointed out to Deng Xiaoping, the poor people came from southern China, but we left behind the Mandarins, the scholarly class. And with their assistance, if you're determined, you can make China as the first-rate country in the world. China, thanks to Deng Xiaoping and the liberalization, have opened up And in another 2 decades, it may also overtake even the United States. What is more interesting, Lee Kuan Yew advised Deng Xiaoping what is required is a peaceful environment. And the peaceful environment can only take place if you do not look at the overseas Chinese as Chinese citizens, but as citizens of overseas countries and who require a passport and visa when they visit China. Not merely that, Deng Xiaoping shelved the contentious issues. He made friendship with the United States. And in order to improve bilateral relations, the Chinese started investing in those countries in equities. So it is extremely difficult for those countries to alienate China. So today, the countries of Southeast Asia, the major investor is China, the major trading partner. And they're really scared what is likely to happen to the relations between the United States and China. In fact, in one of his last statements, Lee Kuan Yew said, competition between the United States and China is inevitable, but conflict is not. And they're trying their level best to maintain that the ship doesn't stumble in the troubled waters of the South China Sea. I'm not a great admirer of the political system either of Singapore or of China.
Sir, over.
Last one.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, I want to mention what Narasimha Rao said in his famous speech in the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. The meeting was presided by Lee Kuan Yew, and Lee Kuan Yew compared Narasimha Rao with Deng Xiaoping. At the end of Narasimha Rao's lecture, there was a question-answer session, and one planted question was asked to Narasimha Rao. What India requires is not democracy, but discipline. That is enshrining what Lee Kuan Yew had been preaching and all. Narasimha Rao pondered for 15 seconds, and then he said, the antidote for the evils of democracy is not less democracy, but more democracy. There was thunderous applause, including some cabinet ministers. The only person who was on perspiring was Lee Kuan Yew. To my last point, how do I felicitate our good friend Dr. Sambat, a dynamo of energy, benign in character with friends all over the world, who has been able to bring about a lot of people and discuss subjects which are of extreme importance to Tamil diaspora and to Tamil Nadu in particular. A small story comes to my mind. There is a story of a parish priest who used to solemnize marriages in his church. One morning, a couple was wedded, and the priest blessed them, and that is what I want to tell Dr. Sambat also. May you live forever, and may I live to bury you.